All right, welcome back to a brand new video. Look at the perp. Look at the perp. Look at the perp. Look at the perp. The color brown, the color blue, the color gray. This is what they do. This is what they do. The guy in the brown shirt standing in the middle of the sidewalk, come up my apartment building. I saw him coming out at the same time, synchronized movement, and then the guy in the gray across the street using hand signals. Right? Let me tell you, they think they're slick. They think that they are slick. And they're not fooling anybody. So anyhow, the New York Predator Department again started illegally surveilling me. Again, as soon as I got up out of bed or stand up, from sitting down and I stand up, they start using their sirens, right? And what are they doing? It's to try to use predator law enforcement as a means to threaten you, psychological, coercive threats, physical threats also, and also to prevent you from standing up for yourself, right? To prevent you from doing the things that you need to do for yourself, right? For example, going to get my medication, or like I said, I got to go down to the pharmacy again, and because I can't do it online anymore. I can't even do it on the phone anymore, because this is what they'll do. All right, this is what they'll do. And yeah, I called my son, spoke to him, let him know I'm on my way. Called his mother earlier today. Like I said, I did a video on it. You know, the fact that again, like I said, these women don't give a shit about their sons. All right, particularly when they are highly narcissistic, highly egotistical, which they've been conditioned into. And they don't want to know. They don't want to understand, because they live in fantasy land, la la land. You know, that's what I said. You know, when I talk about cognitive warfare, right? When I talk about psychological manipulation, and that involves using technology to manipulate our minds, right? Particularly us as black people, black men and black women. It's to put us at war with each other. It is to use us against each other. And I always say, you know, when you look at the conscious community, not only have the white racists, the white supremacists have gotten black Christians to engage in psychological warfare against each other, but also to attack those of other religion, and to attack those who are not religious. All right, so in the conscious community, they have done a pretty damn good job of manipulating other black people to try and to isolate those of us who have self-awareness, those of us who have a broader level of consciousness as to understanding what's going on, right? Now, when I say all of these things, understand that that also includes our socioeconomic disadvantage as a group of people. That also includes, right, environmental warfare, lead poisoning, right, and particularly in America. Now, here's the thing: in America, right, and you look at white children who live in middle-class communities all across America, 7% of those children had some form of lead poisoning. Right? When it comes to white children who are in the working class community, the working poor and the poor, that goes up to 25%. Right? Now, when you contrast that with black children, right, who grew up in middle class communities, that number in black middle class communities, that number is higher than both the white children growing up in middle class and working class communities. All right, and here's the outrageous, and I get angry when I think about this. But black children who are raised in communities where majority working class blacks, working class poor, and poor blacks, that's 55% of our children poisoned with lead. That number is actually higher, right? Because I think those numbers come from over a decade ago. You know, they do these studies every decade, right? So that number is higher. And again, we fail to, as a group of people, you know, we fail to quite understand the totality of white supremacy and racist white people and what it is that they do. You know, just as with in Michigan, right? What's the, you know, where you poison the whole black town? All right, so there's a book I got. It's an audiobook. It's called We the Poison, and it's a book based on the poisoning of black communities with lead and the government cover-up that took place to cover up the crime that they've done against people, right? And it is a shame. It is a shame, right? Then they talk about the connection between children and adults who are poisoned with lead, right? And there's a direct correlation between the increase of crime and the decrease of crime when there's programs that is implemented to remove lead from the environment, right? As opposed to people who live in an environment that contains a lot of lead, whether it be lead paint, whether it be lead in the soil, toxicity in the soil, right? Because again, you look at the negative effect of lead that it has on children as well as adults, and lead is something that you cannot get rid of. Lead is something that you cannot get rid of. And even mothers who are exposed to lead, right? That exposure will lead to their child inside their womb being poisoned with lead. So not only that, they may have children that are born or delivered that have serious neurological issues because of lead, serious behavioral issues, cognitive issues, right? And we don't understand the seriousness of it. We don't think it's not serious. So when I talk about us black people being a dead people, meaning dead in the mind, right? As Malcolm X says, you know, just as a tree without its roots, a people without their history is a dead people, right? So we are constantly unable to resurrect our minds because what? Because there's a lot of mitigating factors in which we can't. And the white supremacists know that. White society knows that. White people know that. And I was talking about, you know, look at Florida in the stand your ground cases across America. You know, black people were caught by surprise that these laws actually exist, right? Even black legislators, until they found out that Republicans were, particularly in state house which are Republican controlled, that they were passing these laws without any Democratic senators, Congress people being present. But yet, in spite of all of our reality that we see, we ignore it. In spite of all of the reality that we go through as a people, we ignore it. I keep saying, we as TIs, we are the distraction. We are the people who they experimented on who they have manipulated in order to distract the public from fully and truly understanding what is going on, what is being done. Right? This is America. This is the white racist America that we talk about. Right? And then we ourselves have gone into the business of sacrificing our children because Jesus sacrificed himself for us. It's in the Bible, you know. Even though Jesus is not real, there is no historical evidence of Jesus being real. But because the Bible says. So what do? We raise children, we sacrifice them. Because we think it's good. But we don't want to sacrifice ourselves, right, for their good. So that they can be great. At one point we did. Particularly in America. Right, in which you had the civil rights movement. Right? See, white people realized that black people was coming into a form of consciousness and starting to become aware and brave. That they were willing to go through what they go through and they've been through for their children. And what is the best way to stop that? One, they realized that the black family was the #1 source of support for civil rights movements, for civil rights organizations. So, what do you think they did? The #1 job was to destroy the black family. Like I said, these people, they plan things not short term, but long term. Right? They do what? They create experiments, like the rat utopia experiment. Right? In which they took a whole bunch of rats, built a city. At first they gave them abundance of resources, and then they start decreasing those resources to see what happens. And what happened? Those rats they started forming gangs. A lot of them became homosexual. Their cognitive skill declined. They became aggressive. So they knew going forward what they were going to do to us as black people. All right? And today, when you have feminism, and what feminism have done, particularly to black women, is to create a mindset in which they don't care about their kids. They have children just to have children. But when it comes to actually loving their children, making sure their children get a decent education, they're against that. And I'm not speaking anything that's a lot. Okay? I'm not going to do that. All right, thank you, sir. Right? They become so materialistic that materialism is put in front of their children. Thank you.